You are finding yourself at a very powerful and equally beautiful choice point at this time. Crossroads, whatever resonates with you. There is something so mystical and divine occurring behind the scenes, behind the veil. And we are at a choice point. Are we going to continue to choose and go with and play into the stories of the ego? Are we going to continue to choose fear and separation and divide? Or are we going to rise above? Are we going to see that there is another road? There is another choice to make, one where we can choose unity, unconditional love, divinity, God, source, spirit. We can choose to see the stories we have been playing in, micro and macro, in the world and in our own personal lives. We can see the stories that we have been playing in, collectively and individually, and we can either choose to continue on in these stories, or we can choose to trust in the divine, to put our faith in God, in source, in spirit. And we can choose to step into the unknown, to revert away from the old storylines, revert from fear, take our energy back from the fear, the control, the power, the manipulation. We can take our energy back from these things and then redirect it down the path for unity, down the path for spirit, down the path for source, down the path for humanity. To choose all of humanity. To not choose just one part of humanity, one side of humanity, but to choose all of humanity. To choose all of yourself. Not just the parts of yourself that you like, that are your good girl, good boy. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean. The parts of yourself that you can reveal to the world without fear of embarrassment or without fear of being ridiculed. Not only are we at a choice point to accept and love those parts of ourselves, but also to accept and love the shadow, to accept and love the parts of ourselves that we don't necessarily want to look at, that we don't necessarily want to reveal to others, that we don't necessarily want to bring to the light. Are we going to choose to keep it hidden, to keep it covered up, to keep it in this like bubble of shame? Or are we going to choose to embody all of ourselves? Are we going to choose to side with all of humanity? This is a very, very pivotal choice point that we are in. And you, the individual, are so powerful. Your choice in this matter is so powerful. What we all collectively choose completely changes the trajectory of our world as we know it. What happens if the majority chooses unity, if the majority chooses unconditional love and unity and humanity and equal rights for all, water and food for all, free energy for all? What if this is the path we choose? And it seems like to a lot of us, to myself included, far-fetched, scary. How are we going to get there? We've never seen this on the planet before. We've never walked that on this planet in our lifetimes, and we haven't seen it happen in our near history. It's scary to choose that, to choose, yeah, I believe in free energy. I believe in equal rights for all. I believe in food and water for all. I believe in all of this. I believe in unity and unconditional love for all of humanity, rather than going back into that egoic story of control of, well, I have to pick and choose between this side, that person, this person. this part of myself, that part of myself. We have to choose and divide and separate so that we can be in control of what is deemed good and what is deemed bad. That is our ego needing and wanting for control because it fears God's plan, Spirit's plan, because it's the unseen, it's the unknown. And we can feel into it. When you feel into that just on your own, and you feel into God's plan, like overall, what does Source, Spirit, God, the universe have in store for you? What does God, Source, Spirit, the universe have in store for humanity? What does Spirit want for humanity? What does God want for you? Feel into that, really. Breathe. Does it feel scary? Because it's a little bit unknown, but ultimately it feels good. It feels exciting. It's like, oh yeah, what God wants for me, what God wants for humanity must be incredible, because this feeling, while I might be a little bit scared, feels really good. Feels really exciting. And so that's the choice, to continue playing in the egoic constructs, the egoic stories, or to take that leap of faith onto the path of the divine, to choose the divine, to choose divine will, to know in our heart of hearts that the divine will wants what is best for all. So there is no need or reason to play into the egoic stories anymore. And whenever we do make that pivot into what God wants for us, I was watching this video yesterday. Kyle Cease was talking about this in one of his hot seats, and it was really beautiful. I love his hot seats. They're so good. And he was talking about how when we choose what God wants for us, it feels really scary to our ego, because our ego is going to die. When we choose God, our ego dies. And so when we stop playing in these stories, when we choose to revert our energy away from the fear and control and manipulation and separation, micro and macro, within your individual world and in the grand, this world that we all live in, it can feel scary to revert away from control, because that means your ego doesn't have a say any longer, and your ego will die when you choose God. And so this can feel like something you're in resistance to, but it's ultimately what feels right to me, to my heart, to my soul. I know that it's difficult and challenging to revert, to release control, but I know on the other side of surrender is God. I know, without a shadow of a doubt, I know. On the other side of surrender is God, is unity, is abundance, is all of these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful things that we think with our egos we can control and manipulate ourselves into getting. But what if your ego is thinking small? What if your ego is trying to control and manipulate its way into getting something that is still playing it small? What if God has something so much bigger and greater and grander in store for you and in store for this world that we just can't see yet, so it feels scary? But the reason it feels scary is because our ego has to die in order to choose God. And when we feel into what God wants for us, it can feel big. It can feel incredibly expansive, and that's scary, because then you have to become that version of yourself that can hold that. You have to become the version of yourself that can hold that level of expansion, that can hold that level of abundance, that can hold that level of love. And so all of your shadows are going to start popping up to be released. They're being flushed out with love. your limiting beliefs, the stories you tell yourself that don't align to your inner God self, that spark of God consciousness that's within. When you feed that seed within, when you feed that God consciousness seed within, you're flushing your body with light. And so you're flushing out all of the limiting beliefs and stories that you don't align with anymore, and people you don't align with anymore, and jobs that you don't align with anymore. And it can feel overwhelming and scary because it's all coming up to the surface, and it causes you to question your decisions because that's your ego grasping for control again. But just trust that once you begin watering that seed, the God seed within, once you start watering that, whatever comes up to leave your life was not in alignment with the life God has in store for you. So while it seems scary, it's not you who is dying, it's your ego who is dying. It's your ego who is losing control. And we are at a beautiful choice point right now to either step into the unknown with God or to go back into what's familiar, to go back into the storylines that we can see and control and manipulate, and we can mold it in our favor. But isn't that exhausting? Isn't that exhausting? And then it's going to fall apart anyways because it wasn't built on truth. It wasn't built on authenticity. It wasn't built with God. So it's not going to last. Anything that's not built with God is not going to last. It's going to give you a short-term high that is masking the pain of being separate from God. Of feeling separate from God, because we're never really separate, but we can create illusions in our life that make it feel like we are. And when we use our ego to control our circumstance and give us that short-term high that comes from control, we're only ever masking the sadness and grief and despair we feel from feeling like we're separate from God, and we're trying to control our situation to give us a high. When in reality, if we surrender and release control and give it all to God, you're not just getting like a quick high, you're going to receive a sustainable level of peace. A sustainable level of peace where you can experience joy and you can experience ecstasy and you can experience grief and you can experience despair, but you're always pop back up. You experience and then pop back up. Experience, pop back down. And you'll always return to this very sustainable level of peace that you can only receive from God. The external, the situations you're trying to control in the external will only ever give you a quick high and then crash, like eating sugar. You get a quick high and then you crash. Whereas when you choose God, you are always operating in that sustainable level of peace, and then you may dip down or dip up, but you'll always return to that midpoint, to that peaceful place. It's not as erratic as the ego going up and down, up and down, up and down. It's like whoosh, little like waves instead of whatever that would be. Giving yourself a heart attack over here. Anyway. So that's what I'm feeling into today. Emotions are heightened, and that's okay. There is nothing wrong with what we are feeling, what we are believing, what we are thinking. It's not a matter of shaming ourselves into God, shaming ourselves home to God. It's a matter of seeing what you think, seeing the emotion that's arising, feeling it, experiencing it, being with it, comforting it, loving it, and then letting it go. And then coming back to God is. Coming back to that knowing God is. So there's no need to shame yourself to God. You love yourself home to God. You surrender to the love you will receive when you return to God, which can also feel scary if you have blocks that allow you to receive. So this is a very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful time. And we have a incredibly magical and beautiful decision to make. But it's just not, it can be one big decision, or it could be lots of little decisions throughout your day, or both. I think it's both. It's one big ultimate decision. I choose God. And then can you maintain that throughout your day? When someone cuts you off on the highway, can you come back to that knowing? When someone irritates you, when all of these things that happen to us, when all of these things that are presented within our reality arise, that's better. Can we come back to that? Knowing I choose God. No need for shame. I choose God through unconditional love for my human experience. I choose God through unconditional love for my human experience. Love for myself when I experience heightened emotions. Love for myself when I am triggered. Love for myself when I am playing in my ego. And love for others when they trigger me. Love for others when I can see that they are playing in their ego. Love for the world when I can see what looks to be chaos and disruption. Can we love ourselves and love this world back to God? Or will we continue to fall into the downward spiral of the erratic emotions of the ego and choose to get lost in them, choose to react to them, choose to play them out over and over and over and over and over again until we have suffered enough? We must get to a point where we have just suffered enough. We're tired of being at the hands of our own suffering by choosing to play out the emotions and the storylines and the beliefs of the ego. You must realize that that is what is causing your suffering. The ego itself is not causing you suffering. The ego is just doing what the ego was designed to do. When you choose to forget that God is, when you choose to forget that you choose God, and to get lost in the ego, to get lost in the emotions and the reactions of the ego, that is the suffering, is that you're getting lost in it. We don't suffer because the ego exists. We suffer because we get lost in the ego and forget to choose God. And that is the choice point. Those are the choices throughout our days that we're presented with over and over and over again. Choices over and over and over again. What will you choose? Will you choose the ego? Will you choose to get lost in the stories of the ego? Will you choose to get lost in the emotions? Will you choose to get lost in the thoughts? Or will you choose to remember God? Will you choose to remember that God is? Will you choose to remember to choose God? To surrender your human life through unconditional love? To love your human experience until you alchemize it? What is that quote? The only way to alchemize a soulless world into a sacred world is to love the sacred in everyone until the sacred in them remembers. Can we choose to do that for ourselves and for others, no matter what, throughout our days? And when we do forget to choose God, when we do forget that God is, when we do get lost in our ego, can we forgive ourselves? Can we have so much infinite and unconditional love for ourselves and others that even when we get lost in it, we forgive ourselves? We don't shame ourselves. We don't blame ourselves. We don't beat ourselves down. We simply just forgive ourselves and move forward. It's all you can do. Forgive and move forward. The past doesn't exist once it plays out anyways. The energies from the past may stick to you if you haven't realized yet that you are unconsciously suppressing or reacting to them. But every new moment is a choice to go within and observe what energies are still stuck to you. What energies and stories and thoughts are you choosing to carry with you? Every now moment is a choice to either continue with the stories, continue with the thoughts, or to release them. But you must become aware of them first. You must go within and observe your inner world, your inner garden. You must take stock of your fruit. You must go within and take stock of your fruit and whether it is ripe or unripe. Whether it's a good fruit or a bad fruit. And then if you have a belief or a thought that is yielding you undesirable fruit, stop planting it. Plant a new seed. Plant a new seed that will give you fruits that you like, that will give you desirable fruits, that will give you the fruits of God instead of the fruits of the ego. Every time you choose a thought or you choose a belief, you're replanting that seed. Every time you choose a belief, you're planting the seed. Every time you speak from that belief, you're watering it. So you could have still undesirable and desirable seeds planted within you, but what you speak is the seeds that you are choosing to water. And so the seeds that you don't water will not come to harvest. So even if you have that belief within you, just don't speak from that belief and it will not come into harvest because you haven't been watering it. But whenever you speak and choose thoughts from the beliefs that you do like, that you do wish to see in your life, that you do want the fruits from, then you're watering those seeds. So it's not necessarily that you have to go through your garden and rip out all the seeds you don't want. You have, if you've seen Inside Out 2, I don't want to get in, it's going to take me off track. 2 analogies at once is too much. Okay, let me get back to that. Yeah, okay, so you don't have to go through and rip out all the seeds you don't want. Let them be and just choose not to water them. Water the seeds you do like that you planted. And then when harvest comes, you'll have your desired fruits. And the fruits you did not water, the seeds that were not desirable to you, will have just not sprouted. That's the work. Just not watering it. You don't have to go do any grueling labor. All you have to do is choose not to water the seed and it won't come to harvest. Wow. It's really beautiful. Just choose not to water it. It's that easy. You don't have to do any grueling work. It's a new choice in every moment. Truly, 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 truly. It doesn't matter what seeds you've planted in the past. It matters what you choose to water today. Wow. I've never thought of it like that. Thank you, Spirit. I don't know why that made me excited. I'm like, oh my God, I love this analogy. Okay, that's the end. I like ending it that way. I don't know. That's the end. Okay, I'm really amped up for my day today now. Okay, let's breathe. Let's take a few centering breaths. Whatever did not resonate, whatever did not make sense, or you don't want to take with you, just forget about it. Don't water it. Whatever did resonate, whatever you did like, whatever did spark something within, let's just breathe into that together. Because I'm going to do the same thing now as I'm always. Okay, sorry. Let's breathe. Deep breaths. Deep breath into our heart. Letting that seed grow even just a little bit in this moment. Watering the seed with space and breath and God. Breathing all the way in, and then we're going to hold at the top. And on the way out, we're either going to sing, make a om, or whatever sound you want to make. Same thing. And hold. And out. Last one, all the way in. Hold. And make a sound. Wow, thank you so much for being here with me. That was beautiful. I hope you have a beautiful day, night, week, weekend, and I'll talk to you later.